Good evening and welcome to a CBS Austin Town Hall. I'm Walt Makaborski. Tonight, I'm joined with a panel of guests set to discuss Austin's Proposition Q, which appears on the November 4th ballot. Joining me is Council Member Jose Tito Vela, Council Member Ryan Alter, Stephen Brown with Save Austin Now, and Austin resident Nate McGuire. Tonight, we'll hear from our panelists and we'll hear from Austin voters who have questions on Prop Q. But first, CBS Austin's Andrew Lemparski breaks down Proposition Q.
You've probably seen these dueling signs around town. Love Austin so much, or enough is enough. But as Prop Q heads to the voters to decide, you might be asking, what is it at all?
That if you're going to increase them above a certain level, you have to go get the voters' approval before you do that.
Bill King, a former Texas mayor and professor of public finance at Rice University, says federal funding expiring, pensions, and population plateaus have put pressure on Lone Star cities. Austin is facing a $33 million budget deficit heading into 2026. But if Austin votes yes to Prop Q, the city would increase property taxes beyond what it's allowed to without a vote. It's about 10 cents more per $100 of value than what homeowners are paying this year, or 5 cents more than the voter-approved tax rate increase. The city estimates someone with a roughly $500,000 home would be paying about $300 more per year. Renters may also take on some of the burden from property owners. That increase adding up to $110 million for the city's general fund.
So it's a confluence of all these things that put pressure on the cities at the same time that homeowners are feeling pressure about the affordability of houses and staying in their houses.
That $110 million, the city says, would be broken up into a few areas. Programs for homelessness, parks, public health, and safety. If it doesn't pass,
No, they're going to have to cut their expenses.
so are the benefits worth the added expense? That's what Austin voters will decide come November 4th.
That was Andrew Lemparski reporting. How did we get here? I'd like to start by asking each of our panelists, are they for or against, in a few short words, of Prop Q? Let's start with Councilmember Vela.
Well, we got here because of the Texas legislature cutting the amount of property tax revenues that the city could collect. And I'm very much for Prop Q, voted for it on council, supporting it today. And if we want good municipal service, if we want quality city services, we're going to need additional revenue to provide those additional services.
Councilmember Earl.
Yeah, as mentioned, we are here because the state has put an artificial cap on our ability to raise revenue. And that is that 3.5% number that was just discussed. And normally 3.5% is something that you might be able to manage. But when that was done in 2019, we all remember what happened next. In COVID, we saw 9% inflation, 7% inflation, inflation rates that were so much greater than 3.5% that the city can't even afford to do what it was doing in 2019, let alone pay for the growth that we've seen in this city. So we are here because we want to provide basic services for residents in a high quality manner.
For Prop Q, now against. Stephen, is this the right thing for Austin?
Absolutely not. I'm against Prop Q. I think it's going to make it so much tougher on community members to take care of their basic needs, to pay bills, to have disposable cash, to spend things that they spend money on things that they care about. I'm glad that there is some sort of cap to kind of make sure things stay in check. But right now, families are cutting back, and I think the city of Austin needs to be cutting back as well.
Nate?
I'm definitely against, and I think we can look at a couple things. The budget's $6.3 billion. We've doubled per capita spending over the last 10 years. And I'm not holding water for Abbott, but I'm glad he put a cap on the city because they're just spending and spending and spending. And so I think it's important for us to do what any kind of household would do, look at our expenses, look at what we're collecting. Not only that, the property values have increased almost $100 billion. So it's not just 3.5%, it's 3.5% times the extra $100 billion. And that's, it's too much.
You know, this city is booming. We are growing. We're excited about the growth, and we're we're building like crazy. People are moving here because it's just a great place to live. The university, we have high tech. There's so many things to celebrate in Austin. But how do we sustain this, Councilmember Alter? You know, you mentioned how we kind of got here, but is this sustainable?
Yeah, first and foremost, you're going to hear all the time that this city has a $6.3 billion budget, and that's way more than everybody else. It is ignoring the truth, which is that we operate our own municipal utility, Austin Energy. We have a water utility. We operate an airport, the convention center. A bunch of our stuff is paid for by fees. What we're actually talking about here today is the portion of our budget funded by property taxes and sales taxes. That's our general fund, $1.6 billion. And that is what funds public safety, public health, parks, libraries. 2/3 of that is public safety. And what is not sustainable is being able to pay all of our employees the amount we need to pay them to be here without asking our residents to help pay for that. I mean, we just gave the police department a raise, 8%, 6%, 5%. EMS got a raise 2 years ago. The firefighters have a proposal that's 4%. If people want even just the basic public service or public safety service, that is above our 3.5% cap. So we have to be able to raise the revenues because things cost money. Or we could have no libraries, we could have no parks. Dallas decided they're going to have no public pools. This is about what type of city we want to live in.
And it's only changeable if the legislature comes around and changes it again.
That's right.
I think a lot of people are wondering, I've been taxed and taxed and taxed. Is this ever going to stop? I mean, that's the frustration. Every time everybody thinks that they're kind of set and done, we face another challenge.
Yeah. Well, the legislature has done a masterful job at hiding the real culprit behind people's rising property taxes. Half of your tax bill is your school district tax, which is a direct function of the state not funding our local public schools. So school district taxes have gone up quite significantly because the state has refused to help fund our public schools. The city, we have raised our local homestead exemption so that taxpayers can see a savings. We continue to raise the senior homestead exemption so that seniors who will only see a $20 increase for the entire year under Prop Q. We do everything that we have the tools to do to keep taxes low, but it'd be great if the state decided to join that.
We don't have enough time to talk about the schools. That's another town hall, but you know, there's so many challenges out there. Now we have several questions from Austin voters like you, and we want to play a few of those questions.
I'm Jacob. I live in Austin in the neighborhood Wilson branch, and my question would be, did they think about that renting is already a little bit cheaper than being a homeowner, and that this gap with the increase would only become bigger and bigger?
What are your thoughts on that, Stephen, the American dream?
Yeah, I mean, renting, homeowning, I think it's all going to get more expensive. If you own a home and you are going to rent it out, you're just passing those bills on to the renter. But this notion that if we don't pass Prop Q, everything goes away, I think that that's not true. I think we have to stop the fear mongering, and I think that according to the city manager's budget that he proposed, all those services would have been funded. These services are funded, they're allocated, they're not going away. If we have a $33 million deficit, why the need for the $110 million? Mr. Alter, I know you ran on affordability. How does Prop Q make this city any more affordable for community members, people born and raised here? How does this do that?
Yeah. Well, what it does is if you look at the manager's proposed budget, he zeroed out our affordable housing trust fund. He cut almost $9 million to our fire department. He cut a bunch of public health dollars. So saying that we had this budget that didn't provide any pain is unrealistic. And we used the housing trust fund to pay for a number of affordable housing programs, including rental assistance. So people who are truly at the edge, who need that help so that they don't become homeless, that's funded through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which we wouldn't have anymore without Prop Q under the manager's proposed budget. So you want to talk about housing affordability, this funds our key housing affordability programs, otherwise they go away.
But like you said, pain, but not going away. So these services are there. Cuts can be made. Things can be arranged. Doesn't go away. So I think the verb and the terminology just goes away. It creates this binary choice that I don't think exists.
Well, I mean, if you said you read the budget, then you would have seen that the Housing Trust Fund was set to zero and zero for years out. So that goes away.
But to interject, it sounds like the guy who administers the budget gave us a balanced budget, and he cut some stuff because it's the right thing to do, because we need to not be spending more money.
Well, there's a lot of pain to go around. As a resident, Nate, it's not just this that we're hearing on the street. It's the price of beef. It's the price of, the cost of inflation. Right now we're in a pause with gas prices, which is nice. But a lot of residents we talk to say he keeps adding up. But then the city of Austin is between a rock and a hard place dealing with this growth. So as a resident on the front line that has to balance their budget,
Yep.
What's your take on this, and what are you willing to let go if the city can't fund it?
I think the frustrating thing for me, and hard to understand as a guy who's not in the game, went to UT, came back after a long time away, and everything seems like it's getting worse. I went deep dive, 10 years of budgets on a per capita basis, and accounting for inflation, we're still spending 20 to 30% more, and it just feels like everything's worse.
So you think it's mismanagement, or do you think?
I think we're not making hard choices. I think, what I would do in my budget is figure out a way to make it work. And I think the important things we need are safety, cleanliness, and keeping this place beautiful. This is my favorite city in the world, and it's gotten to be a mess.
This is a tough one. $754,000 for full year funding for 12 ATCMS sworn positions and 16 AFD sworn positions. Councilmember Vela, one of the problems is I don't know how we're going to catch up with recruiting for police, fire, and EMS. A huge problem for the city as we continue to grow.
Absolutely. We have vacancies in our police department. We have vacancies in our EMS department. We've given good raises to our police, to our EMS. We're likely to do the same for our firefighters soon. But when you're giving 4%, 4.5% raises to your public safety employees, when you're giving 4% raises to your city employees, which I think those are very reasonable raises in line with the private sector who we compete with to recruit and retain talent, how do we fund those with a 3.5% property tax? The math, it doesn't add up there. Something has to give. If we stick to this 3.5% cap, there will be a loss of public services, and 2/3 of what we fund is public safety, and public safety will feel that. When I talk to my constituents, they don't want decreased spending on public safety. They want increased spending on public safety, particularly thinking about the mental health concerns that we're seeing out there. And a lot of what the Prop Q budget is funding is our emergency mental health response, which we've been trying to really beef up. That's a very important element. We'd rather send a trained mental health counselor out there than a police officer. That's what this budget is funding. That's what I want to do.
And we've seen the challenges with police responding to mental health situations, which is increasing, it seems like.
Absolutely. One of the reasons, I think we get a better outcome when we send a trained mental health professional out instead of a police officer, a better outcome for the person in mental health crisis. But we also avoid any kind of liability and losses. We've paid out some pretty large settlements when a police officer has not responded properly and been too aggressive and used violence. So we want to send the appropriate response to the appropriate situation. That's what this budget is funding. And again, long term, we've got to you've got to spend money to save money. We want to stand up these mental health response systems, these better response systems, so we can let our cops be cops and handle property crimes and violent crimes, and let a different type of professional respond to these kinds of the mental health emergencies that people in Austin see on the street far too often, unfortunately.
But I think that what Cheeto's saying is true. Like, city workers work hard, people deserve raises, but at the same time, my mom's neighbor pulled a gun on the street. It took 15 minutes for them to get there, and when they got to her, they told her she needs to carry. That's ridiculous. Do we really think they're doing a good job? Spending more money? Would you give a company that is losing money, doing a bad job, more money? Even if you believe in these programs, even if you believe in spending money on city workers, even if you believe in spending money on homeless, which I do, they're not doing a good job. Why would you give them more?
And I was at a town hall here recently with Chito Vela and AJC, and you know, it's almost like, it's good to hear you kind of change some tunes, because it was almost like you were for kind of some of the defunding of the police, and the, you know, when police contracting budget came up, you know, I think a lot of times our officers and service members and community members can't just afford to stay here. So when there's times where we want policing and we want crime solved in our community, we want good jobs in policing to be able to live here too. But what about the families that are here barely holding on? And you mentioned prevention, who are almost about to be into homelessness because of they can't afford to stay here. What do you tell those families? What do you tell that family? We're trading one city employee for this family? What do you say to those families?
I mean, managing the dollars is not an easy task, and some, you know, residents wonder if we can repurpose those dollars. Let's hear from another resident.
I'm Sam Shepard. I live up in Brentwood, just north of campus. My question for City Council on Prop Q would be, as opposed to raising additional dollars for tax revenue, is there any scenario in which you could repurpose dollars from a different area to fill the shortfall you're trying to cover with these additional tax dollars? So in other words, trying to raise funds, you know, try to make cuts elsewhere and repurpose funds so we can maybe not have to keep paying more and more taxes every year.
Councilmember Alton.
It's a great question. I think what I hear most often from people along those lines is, you've got a budget deficit, how can you afford a new convention center? The convention center is paid for out of hotel occupancy tax, and the state law prohibits that money from being used for things like public safety or homelessness services. And so you could completely take that off the table. We would still have the same deficit we have. Looking at that deficit within our general fund, as Councilmember Vela mentioned, 2/3 of that is police, fire, and EMS. We have contracts with our police, fire, and EMS unions, and so their salaries are set. We can't take or move that up or down. So we have basically just short of $600 million left to plug that gap, and those are things from our parks department, our library, public health. So sure, you could take $30 million from the animal services department, close that department, and fill the gap, but then we would have no animal shelters, and that is something that I think the public would not like to see. We could take $30 million out of the parks department and fill the gap, but then we would be talking about either closing parks, never cleaning the bathroom, or mowing the lawn, or taking out the trash, or fixing the swing set. So we can always take from one and put somewhere else, but it comes with a cost, and ultimately what we're talking about here and what the voters have to decide is, what type of Austin do they want to live in? Right. Do they want to live in an Austin where we're investing in the type of services that they expect and deserve, or do we want to be a minimal service city? And that's what's on the ballot.
To me, that sounds like such a wonky non-answer. It sounds like a gangster collecting like protection money and then asking more after they already took it.
Well, where would you cut? Yeah, tell me what's
that's the thing. What about your travel budget? Or maybe your sweet green lunches.
Sure.
You know?
So,
like,
so
come on,
a
guys.
couple $1,000.
But here's the thing: is you're not even.
How many cops is that going to pay for?
You're not even attempting to cut. That's the problem. And you asked, we have a $33 million deficit. We're going to raise 110. Tell me why.
Sure. So, and that's another we hear all the time.
And then we're going to do it year after year after year after year.
Well, we have a deficit in year one, but it gets bigger over the years because of exactly what Councilmember Vela talked about. We have these
we're
cost
talking
drivers.
to more people on the ground
so
than you are. You're not even on Twitter.
With those cost drivers, our own financial staff has said this budget deficit only gets bigger. So we could be in front of the voters every single year asking for a tax re-election, or we could try to spend money to save, invest in programs that prevent costs from going up. We can choose to not invest in our homeless services. Then those individuals end up in jail or they end up in our emergency rooms. So we all pay for that. So
But y'all aren't even doing a good job now.
But let me say this stuff.
No,
I
I'm sorry.
come from, no,
we're
let me,
not
go ahead,
doing a
Cheeto,
good
sorry.
job. Austin has one of the best EMS departments in the country.
No, sorry,
Austin
I'm
has
speaking
one of the
about
best
homeless.
fire departments
About
in the
homeless
country.
specifically.
Yes, we have had enormous increase in the cost of living, which this council has tackled. Apartment prices are down about 20%. Single family home prices are down significantly. We've built a lot of supply. We've built more housing in Austin, both market rate and affordable, than any other city.
And
This is one of the most
rent is down.
successful
That's
cities in the
capitalism.
country.
That's nothing
That's
y'all
why
did.
Google is here. That's
Bro,
why Facebook
Google's
is here.
office is
That's
empty.
why Apple is here.
kidding me?
That's why, Tesla came here.
You're not answering the question.
well, let me say
Go
this,
ahead.
though. I'm born and raised in East Austin, so I'm used to seeing my parks with grass not cut and the bathrooms not clean. I often have to call Kimberly McNeely just to have someone come over there. So that's not something that we hadn't seen. But I will say, Houston had a budget deficit 6 times ours. They still didn't ask their voters and their constituents to raise their taxes. They did an efficiency study and audited their. Why come Austin can't run an efficiency study and see exactly where can we make these cuts? Have we done
or
that?
at least
well,
talk
you want to know
about
how Houston balanced their budget? They dipped into their reserves by $100 million. So if
But that's
the
the
city
hard
of
work.
Austin, we have our emergency reserves, and we used almost all of them when COVID hit, and that saved us. We almost depleted it, but then we built it back up after we were reimbursed. If we want to completely raid our emergency reserves, our piggy bank, and then have a natural disaster or a public health emergency and be completely exposed to that, sure, that's an option, but that's what Houston did.
The question is, will we have an efficiency study to see where the cuts can be made?
I think we continuously look at how we can operate better. That's how we have our own auditors department who audits many of our departments and gives us efficiency reports. But when you look at what the actual result was in Houston, it not only didn't translate into real savings, but they ended up having to make incredible cuts. They cut 2 services, and the mayor there said, our cuts here are cutting services. They bought out over 1,000 employees so that those people were no longer employed by the city, and then they raided their reserves. If the city, if your solution is firing 1,000 of our workers and completely depleting our reserves, then that is your opinion. I don't think that's the responsible thing to do.
There's so much fatigue here, and I think one of the solutions that we've been talking about for years is affordable housing. I mean, I don't know how we get in front of that in Austin, or if that's something. I mean, you've addressed it year after year after year, and when it comes to homelessness and the expense there, now the state is moving in, and they're not even talking to the city about how they're trying to move people out. But as the mayor said, you're just moving the problem. You're not fixing the problem.
Yeah, and you talk about Houston. We were talking earlier about the different school districts, all of the state closing schools and struggling. This is a statewide issue. The state is not supporting local governments. There are no mental health institutions that folks can go to. They're in the jail, or we have to deal with them. The state doesn't want to take Medicaid expansion. Medicaid expansion would provide substance abuse. It would provide health care to folks. If the state expanded Medicaid, Austin ISD, the Central Health could probably cut tens of millions of dollars in property taxes. But the state refuses to step up and help us, so we have to take care of ourselves. If there's something has to happen if a government has to do something, this government has to do it. We have to pay for it. Austin has to help Austin, and that's what we're asking folks to do. I know it's hard. I wish we had more help from the feds. I wish we had more help from the state, but it's not there. It's not coming. If we want something done here locally, we've got to do it ourselves. It's an unfortunate reality, but it is our reality.
But I do. You talk about local governments, and what you just explained, and the AISD is one of those situations where voters and constituents don't want to be back in that situation. They asked to raise our taxes 2 years ago, only to tell us this year they're closing 13 schools. People are constantly being asked to give more, and they're getting less. So what are we getting for this money? We're not getting better services. My streets, I'm not getting home more efficiently in East Austin. We're constantly asking. You asked Nate earlier, well, how many officers with those sweet greens and those lunches that you had to pay back, or the travel budget? Well, it's not. It speaks to an attitude, a paternalistic attitude of we know best, and we're spending your tax dollars the way we think it should be spent instead of working with us and hearing us. So yeah, those sweet greens, they might not pay a cop's salary, but what it does do is speak to an attitude that y'all don't care about our tax dollars and that y'all can just
So the
keep taking it.
perception bothers you. The
Yeah,
perception bothers
absolutely.
They're
you.
asking us what we should cut. That's their job. Why wouldn't you even think about it? Like, we haven't heard anything about this. We still haven't heard the explanation why we need 110, not 33.
Are you okay with, if this doesn't pass, are you okay with the sacrifices in city services?
It's already not good.
I don't know what sacrifices there are. I
Right.
mean, what do we? I
got
think we're
needles in
still
the
going to get a
parks.
budget passed. They still got to go back and work with the city manager and figure out something. It's this notion, this fear mongering that everything just goes away. It's just not true.
Well, I mean, I don't know if we're just not hearing each other here, but if this doesn't pass, you will see more homeless people on the street. If this does not pass, you will see potential cuts to the public safety entities, just like you saw in the manager's proposed budget. If this does not pass, you will see our parks be dirtier, be less safe.
I already experienced that.
And that's
What
wrong.
do
You shouldn't. And those parks should be
so if
high
this-
quality.
If this
Austin-
does pass, what do you say to the folks that will experience homelessness if it does pass?
I
'Cause
say that
they every
we
10
finally have the resources to continue the progress we've made, and we've
So the
made
last 5
give,
years
give,
at
give up
$500
their
million
livelihood, give
wasn't
up their
enough?
livelihood and go into homelessness because that's the only way they can get
What,
help
what are you
here.
talking about, man? We're talking about $300 a month for
That's
homeowners.
oh, so what are we
That
talking? So that's
$300 is gonna
300.
create
What about the other services? What about the
I mean,
other
what-
property taxes? What about Travis
what
County?
people- who's gonna go-
What
who's
about
gonna become
Travis?
homeless
What about
because of the
Travis County?
$300?
What about? I know people that are struggling to make ends meet. Why do you keep saying what is? So so that's what I'm saying. That attitude right there is it's only $300. That is what us as citizens are worried about. It's not only $300. It's Travis County taxes. It's the
Which is
city of
not on the
Austin.
ballot.
Because they passed it. They didn't even ask voters for
to
it. So
say
it's not
that
even on it. So everyone
It's
is
ignoring the
But
reality.
what
Yeah.
we're talking about today is the choice voters
No,
have,
what
and the
we're
choice
talking
before
about-
voters is less than $200 per year. It's 5 cents on your tax bill, which is just under $200 for the year. That's $16 a month. And
Maybe that's
I know
not
a lot of
for you,
Austinites.
right? Like, maybe that's not a lot for you, but we're here on our own time as Austin residents, and we feel y'all aren't doing a good job. Do you think you're doing a good job? Is the city safer? Is
Well,
it more beautiful?
let's say it does pass. Is that going to solve our problems?
Some of them. It will absolutely solve some of our problems. We are turning the corner on homelessness. Right now, the
It's the
city has
highest
stood
it's
up
ever been.
multiple emergency shelters. There's lots of permanently supportive housing coming that has been built over the last few years. It's going to be opening in the next few years. We've added lots of parks over the last decade, but our parks maintenance budget has not kept up with our parks expansion budget. So we want to really move that from like an average level of maintenance to a real kind of a gold standard level of maintenance, because, and again, a lot of the investments that we're making right now are targeted toward our low-income residents. This is to make sure that folks that are struggling have access to city resources, so that EMS, which is the front line of healthcare in Austin, has the funds that it needs to properly and quickly respond to all types of emergencies, including mental health care emergencies, so that the homelessness can have services and support, and we can get folks off the street so we can provide tenant assistance. I mean, the vast majority of this money is going toward our lower income brothers and sisters to help lift them up, because those are Austin values. We want to take care of each other.
No more raises in the tax base at all. After
No,
this.
no.
I'm just kidding.
I think
Let's
one of
get to another viewer question real quick and hold that thought.
I'm Samantha Garcia. I live in the St. Elmo area, and I want to know, if we're putting Austin residents first, why would we worsen affordability in the city?
Steven?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, so let's go back here real quick. You said it's just $300, but according to a report, for every $100 spent for rent in a medium income home, Echo said 9% of folks might experience homelessness. So
I'm not sure what that number is coming from, and I have no idea what you're talking about.
But there are reports that say for every $100, people will experience homelessness.
This is
so
Echo.
Yeah. So-
what reports are you talking about?
Could I maybe
$100 people
speak
experience
to
homelessness. I have no
our-
idea what you're talking
Could
about.
I maybe
Well,
speak to our
that's because
conversation,
maybe you're not
Steve?
listening.
Yeah.
It's because you're not listening. People are struggling to make ends meet, and if someone, you say, oh, it's just $300, you will let some family go $300 and not make their ends meet and go into homeless. You think that the system is what's going to fix their problems?
So you're saying there's a bubble that's big enough in Austin that this $300 is going to force some
It's
people
going to. They need to stop saying $300. It's going to be more than $300. It's not just $300. They have to stop that. Interest rates,
inflation.
man. The average homeowner last year experienced $1,000 increase in just less disposable cash.
So you think this is a pile?
This is going to pile onto that, and they have to stop saying it's just $300. Stop it.
But then
I have
we're
a
going
story
to
to
face some
tell
tough
about-
realities on dealing with.
Well, I mean, we don't control Austin ISD school tax. We don't control Travis County's tax. We don't control Central Health. What we control is our budget, our tax rate, and what is on the ballot is not anybody else's tax. It's the city of Austin's 5-cent tax increase, which is less than $200 for the average taxpayer. That's what is on the ballot. If people are unhappy about their other taxes, they need to vote for somebody else for governor. They need to vote for somebody else.
The citizens get to
for-
control this, and the citizens should be voting no against this.
And I think one of the beautiful things, Steve and I just met, and we talked. I've met so many people through this. I'm just a normal guy. I got back. I was at UT. I left for a bit. I came back. We talked about gentrification. I didn't understand some of that stuff. And what you're saying resonates. Like, people are hurting. They're spending too much. And we're asking them for more. And we're not doing a good job yet.
People don't come from a world where $300 isn't a lot of money.
Yeah, you're born and raised here.
That's a lot of money to some folks. And it's not just $300.
Is there a corporate relationship that could maybe be creative and help some of this, or is that just out of the question?
If some corporation wants to donate $30 million to the city,
Well, you
our
know
hands
how,
are always
you know how
out.
ACL tries to help the parks and South by Southwest. I mean, that's not going to solve our problems, but I don't know how we get out of this hole.
And that's one of the things is that Austin has been very creative about generating additional revenues outside of property taxes and sales taxes. We have Austin Energy, which is an extremely well-run, well-operated utility that transfers a large amount of money to the city of Austin, and that helps hold down overall property taxes. We have ACL, which generates $50 million or so, I think, over the last decade in money to improve parks, to help parks. Lots of the parks that we've built over the last decade are directly thanks to the ACL Festival and the money that it generates. We've been very creative about trying to generate additional revenues for the city, but ultimately, property taxes are the single largest, most stable, most reliable source of revenues, and that's what we need to pay cops, to pay firefighters, to pay EMS. We can't kind of have a bake sale to fund core city services. We've got to rely on the core tax base to fund those critical city services.
You really want this to pass. Councilman Avila, in full transparency, campaign finance reports show you, Mayor Pro Tem Vanessa Fuentes and Mayor Kirk Watson donated to the PAC for this. You want it to pass. It's no secret that you want it to pass, but what do you say about supporting the PAC to get it to pass?
Well, I mean, we've got to run a good, strong campaign to inform voters about what is going on, what's on the ballot. This is the first time we've ever had this type of election. The law at the Texas legislature just changed in 2019. No major city has yet had this type of election. They're coming down the road because everybody is going to be facing that same fiscal cliff. So I want to make sure that voters know what's going on. And when I think about my next 3 years on council, I don't want to be deciding what to cut, year after year after year. Quality of life is what attracts people to Austin.
And we love Austin. I mean, I think everyone agrees on that. Nate, I mean, you love Austin, at UT, coming back. It was a different city when you were at UT, but you came back and you want this to make this home. You have a website against Prop Q. You mentioned police staffing response times lag despite record spending, and there's plenty of money to fund parks and emergency services. Where do you suggest we get that money?
Well, I think there's a couple things. That website, I went through the last 10 years of budget documents, and I go back to per capita spending has nearly doubled, accounting for inflation. Things don't feel better. But the question I come back to is, if we want to keep Austin affordable, why am I the one that has to figure that out? We keep asking them, what would they cut? What would they do to figure this out without asking us for more money, making things more affordable for people that have been here a long time? I'm happy to go wonky in the details. I built the site because I'm just a big nerd, you know? And you can tell I'm nervous. I don't want to be here.
There's a lot of numbers, and there's a lot of writing on the line for the city here, you know, for not only for the residents, but for the city. We want to stay a #1 city.
Yeah.
We want to be the
But are
jewel
we a
of the South.
#1 city?
Yeah.
Are we really doing our best? I love this city. You know, I want a clean, beautiful, safe city.
And do you think it's going to be cleaner, safer, and more beautiful if we defund
I think
all
if
these
I gave
departments?
someone $500 million for homeless and there's more total homeless than there were before, I probably wouldn't give more money.
I'm sorry, I just don't know where those numbers are coming from. Like, they're just pulling numbers out of nowhere
What
and
about
throwing them out there.
the community has already been asked to bear these burdens. Look at Project Connect. We got nothing from Project Connect. You talk about cap and stitch. You know, I'm used to givings being dirty. You want me to be excited about spending more money on a cap and stitch? There's been so much waste going on here in the city, and it's time that we start looking out for families. It's time that we get back to making sure that families are in a position to be direct service providers for their own family. We don't need to just give our money over to the government hoping that they're gonna make our lives better when they prove that they haven't. And to be honest, if having more money for homelessness was gonna solve the problem, it would have already solved it. We still are dealing with homelessness.
Now, before we go, we're running out of time. Voters are stewing over this. I'm surprised, again, at the low voter turnout already at the start of early voting. Let's get some final words, Councilmember Vela.
You know, Austin is a world-class city, but we've got to continue to invest in our people. We've got to continue to invest in our infrastructure if we want to continue to be a world-class city. It's a special place. We have so much quality of life here, but so much of it is because of the public infrastructure. I think about the trails and the swimming pools and all of the events that we have in our parks and the libraries and those kinds of things. We need to invest in that. We need to make sure that our community has access to quality services, and that's ultimately what Prop Q is about.
We're going to get to all of you. I want to get your response to that.
Well, I mean, I get back to affordable for who? That's the question that I keep asking.
Affordable for everyone.
Affordable for who? The things you just named, places and things. What about the people? What about the people? Because this doesn't feel like Austin this is not affordable for Austinites. This is not affordable for long-term residents nor newcomers. Mr. Alter, you ran on affordability. Again, how does this make it affordable for a family? How are you asking families to bear the burden of this when we hadn't got anything from Cap Metro, from Project Connect? We're still dealing with homelessness. We've spent so much money on these things already. And to just keep taking from families, when is this city going to get serious about families, not places and things?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because I have very young children, and one of the reasons I ran for office was I wanted to make sure that this was a city where they could have the opportunity to live, that they could afford to live here. And we have done incredible work on making Austin more affordable. Austin is now, over the past 2 years, our rents are down almost 20%.
That's capitalism,
home prices
not
are
city
down
council.
No, that's
an
city
immense
zoning
amount
policy.
as
because
well.
you approve the
We
buildings,
have
you build them.
seen
I'm going to get to you
Sorry.
next.
Yeah.
I'll get you right next.
we have seen it become more affordable here compared to any other city. Look at Dallas, look at Houston, look at other cities where they didn't make the types of housing reforms that we made. We built homes and they became cheaper. And so that is one of the main ways we are trying to make Austin more affordable. But ultimately, this is about people. So when someone's having a heart attack, are we going to spend less on our EMS department and make it take longer for someone to get there? If someone wants to play at the park with their kids, if we spend less, are those swing sets going to be working? Are the trash going to be taken out? If someone is on the street facing a mental health crisis, you're telling me if we spend less, that's somehow going to make that better? I mean, that may work for the federal government under Donald Trump, who cuts everything and assumes it's going to get better. But here in Austin, where we deal in reality, it takes money to solve problems.
This
and
is
we
not
want
a,
to invest
this is not part. This is
into
partisan,
people,
man. Don't bring
and
that
that's what
in.
we're doing here.
This is partisan.
Nate, what's your reality? What are your final words here?
You know, I think I've asked time and time again, what would y'all cut? What sacrifices do we need to make this work? And I keep hearing more. They're asking us for more. And it just doesn't make sense to me, because we're sitting here frustrated, paying too much, not getting the beautiful city we deserve. And, you know, when does it end?
It's not the Austin of old, but it's a tough road ahead.
But at the last town hall, Cheeto, you said Austin was safer. You said things are better. You said that at the last town hall. So which one is it? And that's what I'm saying. So it sounds like y'all are the one pulling stats and figures out, and that goes back to the paternalism that these citizens are experiencing with this council.
Well, Echo did say that homelessness was going down, but the governor came in and said, you know, we're going to get our crews in here and do our own thing. What's your response to that? I mean, there's no easy answer to the homelessness thing. I think we agree on that. But, you know, we're trying to, we've got to do a better job in some areas.
New homeless are down. Total is higher than it's ever been.
The point in time count was high.
We've learned over the last decade that just clearing out camps does not work. It's not effective long term. You're just pushing people from one place to the next, and you're spending a lot of money to do it. And again, a lot of what we're looking at, especially when we're talking about homelessness, if we don't spend that money on outreach, on trying to get them housed, on services, we're going to spend it on public safety when the fire department is called for a fire in the woods, when EMS is called for drug overdoses in homeless camps. So it's really a question of, do we want to react to homelessness with just sending out cops and firefighters and EMS, or do we want to go ahead and proactively address it by sending people into the camps, trying to get people into housing, trying to help them? I want to be proactive about it. I want to try and address the issues and not just spend the money on the back end reacting, which is what we're going to be forced to do if Prop Q passes.
It seems like we're already spending this kind of money. We've already spent that kind of money. If spending the money would solve it, it would solve it. But what I will say is that it just seems like there are a lot of people, local governments, organizations, that are making money off the side effects of these issues rather than addressing the root cause of them. And we need to start addressing the root cause of them, solving this stuff, and stop asking the taxpayer. This shouldn't be a forever bill for taxpayers. This should be solved. We should be further down the road than we are.
Forever taxes. None of this is going away. I just don't understand
it. It should get cheaper.
We have to fund these kinds of things long term. This is not a one-time expense kind of thing. This is, I mean, the cops continue to need to be funded. EMS continues to need to be funded. The parks continue to be maintained. Like, I mean, this is not we're asking just one time to do one thing. This is ongoing maintenance and support for the entire city of Austin.
But I think that's the confusing thing to residents. You know, like I said, I left and came back. I was in San Francisco. This feels to me like a slow motion train wreck of the same thing. They're funding NGOs for homeless. They're not incentivized to actually solve the problem. They have executives with $500,000 salaries. And we're sitting here listening to y'all say, we need to keep funding, we need to keep funding. What? It's not working. We need to do something different. That's it. We just need to do something different. I'm not against any kind of homeless spending.
No one is.
Exactly. And from my point of view, this is one of my soapboxes. I feel cities should do the things they want to do in-house, kind of like the FDR jobs program. If you want to fund homeless, let's do it in-house so we have transparency. We're not paying executives, that kind of thing. And let's do a good job. We're not doing a good job.
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, if we bring it in-house, it gets more expensive. So if someone wants to keep taxes down, then
I would argue that you have no evidence of that.
Well,
we have plenty of evidence of that,
well,
yeah.
So if we delete,
let's talk about what this money has actually produced, because we've seen some really incredible successes over the
total
past 5
homeless
years.
is up and it's not
So
safe.
I didn't interrupt you when you were talking. I'd
Yeah, but
enjoy
you
the same
gotta
respect.
you gotta start
I'd really enjoy the same
respectful,
respect.
man.
Hey, wrap it up for us.
Absolutely. 5 years ago, we had just around 900 permanent supportive housing beds. That number is now 1,700. We used to have around 750 rapid rehousing beds. That number is doubled. We have 600 more permanent supportive housing beds in the pipeline. The reason that we are seeing progress and not the type of growth that we had seen years past in the homeless population is because we're finally getting people off the streets into housing. Now, are people continue to fall into homelessness? They are. They're doing that, unfortunately, in every city in the world. We have learned what works, and what works is getting people into housing, and that takes money, that takes investment. But I can guarantee you one thing here tonight. If we spend less on homelessness, that number is going to go up even faster.
It's your money and your vote, and I want to thank our guests for joining us tonight. It was cordial, it was engaging, and it was also a way to tell the viewers, hey, we care about the city. I think everyone here cares about the city, and moving forward, we're going to have to make tough decisions either way. Early voting ends October 31st. Election Day is November 4th. Thank you all for joining us, and good night.